I was wondering,
Oh,
I did a little research.
that's bad news.
I looked up race, and I watched a couple of YouTubes, of course,
So you're an expert.
and I read some stuff, and it's so confusing, the way we think of race. My conclusion was there's no point thinking about it at all, because the way the systems are set up to judge people and to, first of all, nobody's pure.
Right.
I am almost, but hardly anybody is. And secondly, what we call race is not race. Hispanic people
Are white.
speak Spanish. Latino people are from South America or the Caribbean or Mexico. Those aren't races. Cecilia always talks about, when she has to fill out a form, it'll say, "What's your race?" Sometimes there's no choice that she can take, and sometimes it'll be South Sea Islander or Pacific Islander. Is that a race?
It's a location.
In biology, and I don't think this has changed, in biology we were taught like there are 3 actual races, right?
Right.
But that, now it is a different, I guess probably unless you're a biologist or an anthropologist or something like that, you don't think that way. I was listening to John Leguizamo. He had that. I think it's called Latin History for Morons. Did you see that?
No.
He had a 1-person show and they did a film of it. And I guess I never thought of it this way, but Hispanic people from Central and South America. And, there's a lot of Native American in there. It is just, you can't separate them out, right? And I look at my son, he's got super Asian eyes, and supposedly people came from Asia, how can you separate those things out? You can't.
Right. To just say there's white, there's black, and there's Asian, it doesn't make any sense anymore, for sure.
But you're thinking, well, that people simplify by saying, because you're Latin, because you're French, because you're whatever, that they call that a race as opposed to a nationality. Or
ethnicity to me is the better word.
There was a thing about non-Hispanic whites or non-Latino whites are Americans who identify as white and are not of Hispanic heritage. But Hispanic has nothing to do with it.
What?
It's a language. At the end of it, you just say, what?
Yeah.
I don't understand what any of that is about. And so my conclusion was, can we just forget it?
I wish we could.
I wish we could, too.
But we can't.
So anyway, I guess I didn't have a real topic there, but we're dealing with old-fashioned, 19th century concepts that haven't gone away. It's time to just forget all that,
I agree.
Well, tell that for all the people who are going to vote in the midterms.
Or Kyrie Irving's 5 million followers.
What the hell?
What's wrong with him?
What is going on?
That's another thing. What are Jews? Are Jews a race?
It's true of Muslims too. It's
right.
And I guess it's true of Catholics as well, right? It's not a race. None of those are races. They're religions. But, they come to, I think, for certain historical reasons, they come to be identified as a race.
Right.
Right.
I guess having thousands of years of history of discrimination and violence against you will maybe do that,
You're non-white, Grace.
Oh, because I'm Italian?
Technically. If this was 1880 and you just got off the boat.
Yeah, I'm a mongrel race.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they used to call Italians? Mongrels?
Mongrels?
I don't know.
How can that even be worth thinking about?
Well, we're 3 white people talking about it, too, so I don't know if we can really speak to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Being in the school that I'm in now, talking about epidemiology and public health, there are a lot of social determinants of health, and, race is one of those, in that, when you look at certain statistics, it's like economic status, certain statistics show that there are clusters of issues around, people of certain ethnicities and things like that. And if you think of it in maybe it's hard to think of it in a positive term, but I think there's a lot more emphasis now on the fact that these groups have total health inequities and disparities, and that we should really do something about this because
Right.
they live 10 years less than a white person, quote unquote white person on average. And, they have higher rates of cancer and they have higher rates of miscarriage. And, so if it's a way to identify folks who need more help, that's a good thing. But that's generally, I think, not what happens.
It's the inequity in healthcare is what you're saying,
I don't know.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, inequities in all, the social system and the economic system and every system, really.
When I was a little kid, my mother's brother married an Italian girl.
Oh, no.
And it sent shockwaves through the family. And then a few years later, my father's sister married a Cuban guy. And both of those situations were it was just whispered about and talked about. And they were, they married those people and then kind of divorced themselves from the family almost. It took a long time for them to get back in the good graces of the family. I never understood it then because they seemed like nice people to me. All of them seemed like nice people, and I never understood it. So
I remember my mom telling me when she was in school, and my mom's 91, so when she was in grade school, there was a boy who liked her and wanted to, I think, maybe take her to a movie or something, but she couldn't because he was not Catholic.
Right.
He was a Protestant.
yeah, that's another thing. Who even knows now?
Right.
Well, we don't. Mostly a lot of our society doesn't care anymore. I mean, I think isn't it the majority of people now claim that they're basically secular?
Right.
Is it the majority now?
I don't know. I thought it was.
Maybe you need to research that.
It could be by certain age. It could be by certain age
Right.
groups. I'm sure it does break down by age.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I should go back and listen to every episode of Charbroiled Chats and write down what we have to check. 'Cause
Fact check.
Right. Have one show where we address all the things we were
Yeah.
speculating on. Yeah.
And we should see who has the most erroneous statements.
I think we should do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I do too. Keep a tote board.
Right. The debunk podcast. Yeah.
Misinformation.
Right.
By the way, excuse me.
You all right?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to make
You
it.
got a tick in your throat?
I think I'm getting COVID right now.
Yeah.
I can't talk. After editing the last 2 episodes, we did a lot on death and meaninglessness and disease, and they were really downer. So I think we should apologize to our listener right now. We got to be careful of what we do. There was a moment where Grace said, "You're the death expert,"
Oh, yeah.
talking to me. And what I heard is, "You're the deaf expert." And then you kept saying death, death, and I kept hearing deaf, deaf. And then, in the end, it turned out that, yeah, I'm kind of the deaf and the death expert.
You were the deaf expert.
Both.
the deaf expert.
Do I sound terrible?
You sound gravelly. Yeah.
You sound froggy.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, froggy.
Want some water?
Yeah, where's your lovely assistant with some water?
Right. Did she clap you on the back? Should I be videotaping this in case you expire? Yeah, just so
Last night we watched West Side Story.
Oh, yeah, the new one.
It wasn't as spectacular as I thought it would be, and it wasn't as flashy, but it was perfect.
I don't like Steven Spielberg.
I knew you would say that because he's mainstream and sentimental, and
No, I mean, there's plenty of mainstream directors I like, I think. I mean, I don't know. Who do you consider a mainstream director?
James Cameron?
Oh, no, don't like him.
Ridley Scott?
Oh, I like him.
I'll stand up for Spielberg. I think he's,
Yeah. I'm not saying he's not a talented director.
yeah.
I just don't like I don't know.
He's a little bubble gummy.
He's just too sentimental for me. Yeah, when he does stuff like what's that first one? Drive, is it called? When he does stuff like that and Jaws and Minority Report.
Yeah, he's done.
I like him a lot.
He's done 30-something films,
Yeah.
and you've forgotten a lot of them, I bet. Munich.
Oh, he did that?
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Bridge of Spies, and there's a lot of stuff that he did that I don't think he deserves the bubble gummy.
Well, I just feel... Anyway, go on. Now I could go on forever. Go on.
I like musicals because once you get over that moment where they start to sing, anything is acceptable. But we sat there except for a pee break, 2 hours and 20 minutes, and didn't say a word.
I heard it was good.
You also have to remember that the score, fucking stupendous.
Classic.
And that's really why you sat there and didn't talk, because the music is so wonderful and the story is just, heartbreaking, and it's a fantastic piece. I love the original one.
It is. It's a classic, but every frame of it, it's like perfect, not in a way that it's, pristine. It's very gritty, more gritty than I imagined, and it has more danger to it than the original.
Well, maybe I'll watch.
I wanted to see it because I like Spielberg, but everything about it, the acting and the one guy he's kind of a stooge.
The lead guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't like that actor at all. I don't like him at all.
Tony, yeah, I heard he's not really, it was miscast.
That was a mistake, I think.
miscast.
I don't know how that happened, but there are moments here, such great moments in it, and every second was like, I just want to know what happens next, even though, of course, I know what happens next, but just so well done. Anyway, that's my review.
I watched Jaws last week. I came across it. I haven't seen it in
Really?
decades. It really holds up. I mean,
God, it's so good.
despite the
So
fact that the
good.
shark is so fake looking,
Totally.
the whole thing holds up. It really is a great movie.
Robert Shaw's character is so great.
I know. But Dreyfuss is too. He's terrific.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The nerdy smart guy.
There's a thing about Spielberg, the blocking. There's a flow to every scene that perfectly natural. There's never any question. Like you look at Michael Bay or somebody and you go like, what the hell is happening? I don't.
Joel Schumacher, it's shit. It's absolute shit.
Spielberg, when he's doing an action piece, a set piece, that you know exactly who is where and why they're there and what's going to happen next.
Yeah, he's
And
really good at that.
Jurassic Park.
For sure.
Kids are in the car and
Oh, God.
On the mirror.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it's,
Oh.
there's a reason for every shot.
yeah, it's fantastic.
And when it's above oh my,
Yeah.
doesn't matter how many times you watch that, you're like, wah!
So you're wrong on Spielberg, Grace.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I just don't like his movies where he tries to be really like super serious. The stuff when he does action and all of that, I like that stuff a lot of his. I like Indiana Jones. I like Jaws. That first movie was called Duel. I think that was his first big movie. Yeah, was it Dennis Weaver?
Wow. Got to look that up.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Dennis Weaver. Yeah, he's driving the
Yeah.
car trying to get away or something. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's him.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my review and my defense of Steven Spielberg. I know you really like Korean torture films, but
It doesn't have to be torture.
Martial arts, though, right? Yeah, martial arts.
Well, there was a great documentary on Netflix. Was it Netflix or no? Maybe something else. But anyway, it was called Kung Fu Kicks and something. Anyway, it was a documentary about Kung Fu movies. It was so fun. And it was really... Did I talk about this already to you?
I don't think so.
It was really interesting because apparently like in the 70s, like in New York City, that was like a real hotbed for audiences for those movies, right? And they would put double features together with like blaxploitation movies and Kung Fu movies. So like the black audience was really huge into Kung Fu. And they showed like the connections between breakdancing and Kung Fu moves, like how it was super interesting. Yeah. And, of course they talked about, Bruce Lee and they talked about Jackie Chan. But then, there were some other people in there that I hadn't heard of before that they talked about. And it was really, and they talked about like in Hong Kong, like the Hong Kong movies. I don't know if it's still true, but apparently in the day, like they could do anything they wanted on set practically, right? And like they showed one Jackie Chan movie where they blew up a building, but they didn't ask anyone's permission to blow it up. and they showed this other scene where this group of like gangsters kidnaps this little girl, and she's walking, like she's 7 years old, walking along the street, and they kidnap her and they grab her by the hair and they're dragging her along with the car, like holding her up. That was not fake.
Ugh.
They did this to this little girl, holding her by her hair while the car was driving. She's outside the car. They're holding her by the hair.
Right.
And it was real. They didn't have any kind. And they said,
no child services there on set?
They said if you were in a Hong Kong kung fu movie that you were going to get hurt for sure.
Wow. And not sued, apparently.
I guess not.
Gosh, I watched the Great British Baking Show last night. I feel like maybe I need to broaden my horizons.
I like that too. Well, I don't know when I started getting more into the kung fu stuff, but I really like it. I mean, it's just fun. It is so much fun. Like when you watch Big Trouble in Little China, right? I mean, the fight scenes in that are so much fun.
I mean, it's almost like musicals. I mean, it's a whole genre.
Right.
And once you accept
it is totally
that they're sort of dance fighting,
totally,
then it's fun.
Right.
Yeah, like we watched all the Ip Man movies. There's 4 of them, and one of them, Mike Tyson, is in it. It's like, what the hell is Mike Tyson doing in this?
Yeah, Cecilia watched those. I couldn't do it.
Oh, I loved that.
The guy was a great character, right?
I love him.
Just so quiet, and
he was in Rogue One. That actor, he was in Rogue One. That's where I really kind of first saw him. That was the only Star Wars movie I ever really liked.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they all die. And I'm like, well, why did they kill them all off? Those are the only characters I ever really liked.
Oh, I did fact check something from our previous episodes where we talked about death and meaninglessness. We were talking about, I brought up that...
I thought we weren't supposed to talk about that now.
I know I'm going, but I just noticed, I made a note because I did fact check.
Yeah, I know, you brought back again.
Astrophysicists committed suicide most of any profession, and then dentists. You said that couldn't possibly, I mean, because dentists are not doctors, they would kill themselves.
Right.
Anyway, what I found, I didn't find astrophysicists on the list, but the list of most common professional suicides: doctors, dentists, police, veterinarians, financial services, and realtors.
What?
I didn't copy out what the reasons were.
Realtors,
yeah.
Realtors.
Veterinarians.
Like, I sort of get the health professions,
It's a lot of pressure, and it's big ticket. It's not like selling a used car.
But what's the real...
maybe next week I'll sell 3. It's like, I got to sell that house.
I get the realtors.
Now.
You're not selling something for so long, and you get beaten down. You're not making a sale. You're not making a sale. So maybe it's not worth living anymore.
Well, the thing is it the profession, or is it the kind of people that the profession attracts?
Yeah.
Well, that's an excellent point.
That's something to research, Walt. That's for your next week.
Every list I looked at, there are a lot of healthcare professionals. And it's mostly because people just don't appreciate what they do.
See,
Yeah.
I like by the same token, I'm sitting there thinking, like, why wouldn't social workers be in there, and people like that? Because what kind of shit do they see?
Right.
But maybe they're emotionally better equipped. I don't know.
Well, when you're an empath, when you're in the healthcare, I think you're idealistic about helping people and wanting to help everybody, and maybe when you can't help people all the time, it's stressful for you. It makes you feel bad. You can't help everybody.
Yeah. This is a thing that, we shouldn't get onto this either, but, how people say, well, most people are good. It appears they're not.
Yeah, right.
Some people are good.
Some people are good, and some are real jerks, but a lot of people are just in that ready to snap, angry.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of disappointed me about the thing that we're in now, that people are not what I thought they were. People have let me down.
Yeah.
So
our book club read this book about it was a novel about people fleeing Syria, I think, trying to get someplace else, and they're on a boat, and there's a disaster that happens with the boat, and who kind of steps up and who doesn't, and and it's like, I think until you're in a really bad situation, you don't know who's going to be a good person and who's not going to be a good person. You don't really know until you're faced with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you like to think, and that sort of was in some ways the thrust of the book. Like, we all like to think that we would be the person in the book, who was the best person and really
Right.
tried to help you, but we don't know that. You don't know until you actually...
So you're in the situation, right?
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you pass by someone and you're like, oh, I wish I could do something about that. And you don't. But like, my son is out, when he was younger, he'd be like, like, I remember once we were driving down the street in the snow, slushy snow. And there was this guy who was obviously down on his luck, riding a bike, and he wipes out, And I pull over, and like, Luis is like, what are you doing? I'm like, Luis, we have to see if that guy's okay, I mean, he's like, no, don't stop. I'm like, we have to see if that guy's okay. I always call him Luis Mr. Compassion because he's super compassionate. That's a super minor thing. It was no skin off my nose to stop and see how he was. But, if you were in a situation where you could lose your life, what would you do?
About a month ago, we ran across a fellow who had fallen on his bike. He didn't look that great. And we backed up, and Chuck got out, and he was like, hey, you all right? Do you need, can we help you at all? And it was just, of course you should do that,
Yeah.
And we ended up giving him a ride to his, wherever he had to be. It was just like 5 minutes down the street. We threw his bike in the car, and it was fine.
That's cool.
Yeah, more people. Spread kindness. Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've kind of developed a culture where there's so much fear. If you stop to help a guy who fell off his bike, he's going to pull a gun on you.
Or he's going to knife you and take your wallet.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have done that if I was by myself.
Right.
I know. That's disappointing.
It's always really sad, too. I remember once in Rochester, I was driving down the street and I saw this really, elderly lady in the corner. And then, and for some reason, I don't know, it struck me as odd. And I looked back in my rearview mirror and I literally saw her just go face down in the street. And I was like, oh my God. And so I stopped, and, a bunch of other people too. And she was bleeding, and, and everyone figured that she was coming from the home down the street, because she was really out of it, and we didn't think it was definitely all from the fall, and after the ambulance took her and everything, it was like I cried just because of the emotion that you build up sometimes when something like that happens. You're involved, and so maybe that's part of the whole doctor, dentist, suicide thing, because maybe there's so much stress involved in that your body can't take it anymore, and it's turning on yourself in depression, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could look that up again and actually copy the paragraphs instead of just reading the headlines. But what fun would that be?
Yeah. No, you just have to make up your own details.
Yeah. Bailey, you sent us a review that a friend had written.
Yes.
Did they say who they liked best at all?
Why are you asking that?
No.
Well, you just need a little bit of massage, Wally.
No, I just wondered.
Probably you, Walt.
I don't think there's a hierarchy here. There's just wondering.
She didn't mention anyone specific.
Yeah, that's a very diplomatic answer, Bailey.
Well, she's my friend, so it was probably me.
But she met me.